thanks for coming, you guys. Really, this is the 9th week. It's downhill. 6 more weeks and we're done. So, and hopefully, you notice the sign. Some of you guys are, you're seeing it now. You're seeing the history and you're feeling it. So a lot of these things that we're talking about, I mentioned a little bit about Powder River last week. Powder River is over in Wyoming, way up in this area, way up here. This area, man, it's a lot of Wyoming, part of our history. Week 10 today, we're gonna tie that in with Red Cloud's War. Now, Red Cloud's War, I mentioned earlier, started back in 1856, 57, after they started building those forts in the Bozeman Trail. And so Red Cloud's War went from up until 1876, when the Little Bighorn battle happened. So there is a little bit of a discrepancy with some of the authors, but the winter counts, our winter counts kind of say otherwise. There was always a war. Red Cloud didn't want to give up the land in that area up there, because remember, Red Cloud was part of the northern band, and they didn't want anybody to disturb the food chain, disturb the buffalo. So after 68, Fort Laramie Treaty was signed, and its problems. So we'll talk about that probably next week a little bit more, but we'll get back to that. Week 11, again, United States attempts to fulfill treaty obligations, 1871 and 74. It ties in her with the war and some of the policies that the government was giving to us now. So there's, again, with the problems that you have, the policies that are written into the treaty, all of that was coming into place there. So we'll talk about that eventually. And keep up your reading. I think we're on chapters 3s and 4s now. And it's those chapters are pretty thick. So week 12, on November the 4th, and it's going to be on a Friday. We're going to go to Fort Robinson, and we'll go see the sites and visit there's many stories, 6 or 7 stories over there that we'll touch base with. So that's going to be, and then we're going to talk a little bit about I've been trying to call them guys to the Fur Trade Museum over in Chatter. At least after, when we get out of Fort Robinson, it'll be about 2:30 or 3. From there we'll zoom over there and we'll at least get out of there by 3:30 or 4. And we'll be back here in time for our class here at 5. So if you have a class that evening or that afternoon, we'll work that out somehow. Today, we have a presenter, Mr. Wendell Grandgard. He's out of Sioux Falls, and he's got some stuff here that's gonna, boy, when he found out that he's gonna bring some rifles and some weapons, man, we were excited. But there's some good stuff that he's gonna bring. Also, he's got a book here that he just gave me, and I'm anxious to read this. I'm gonna read this tonight, documenting the weapons at Little Bighorn. And there is a lot of good stuff in here, that all of the battle sites and the maps. So it'll be interesting. What I can do is you want to check it out before, within the next 2 or 3 weeks here. You're welcome to take that home and to read that too. So Wendell's going to be with us, and his Little Bighorn era weapons. And that some of them even went down during Red Cloud's War. And some of those weapons were probably used during that. So I don't know if if you could do some DNA on it or something, you might find some blood splatters or stuff like that. So there's a little stuff that we're going to talk about. When Wendell leaves us this evening or this afternoon, we have, I would like to have some volunteers to talk about those historical sites that I gave you guys to look at. And let's do a little bit of, share some of those stories about the Minnesota Uprising, 1862, Sand Creek, and Whetstone Massacre. They're calling it a battle, but it should be a massacre. And then Killdeer Mountain, up there where Sitting Bull, an American horse, where there's a fight up there in North Dakota. So these are the things that we're gonna talk about. And take a lot of notes today, huh? He's got a lot of stuff to share. He's gonna pass around these rifles too, so some of you guys might wanna, you might wanna stand up with put that rifle right here, put a headband on, and we'll,
and be Mark.
Yeah, Mark, same thing, man. We'll maybe relive 150 years ago, just to get that feeling again, you know. So maybe the ladies could try it too.
Maybe the ladies a long time ago fired one too.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. I just remember yesterday, in the oral literature, one lady brought a story about she was seeking revenge on the Shoshone or the Crow, but they killed her brother or her dad or one of them. So she eventually got her revenge, but that was a good story. It was a woman's role that she played, and so I didn't get a chance to look at it. I just glanced through it, but so there's some reading that we can do with that. So, you guys, I want to introduce Wendell. Wendell is a hard-working man. He's got a lot of information here that's going to share us. So take some notes. If you have a question, raise your hand, and we'll go from there. I'm sure he could keep us going here. Wendell.
Thank you for inviting me. And one of the guns is, your professor has put Killdeer Mountain. And the history of that one shotgun comes from Killdeer Mountain. And what it was that in 1862, Sitting Bull traded for it some buffalo hides at Fort Pierre. Now, so then he took it to the battle, and he used it in a battle before, but the day of Killdeer, he gave it to his nephew, White Bull. And he says, now you carry this shotgun, because he promised his sister, Sitting Bull promised his sister, I'm not going to lose him. So he gave him this shotgun. And then it was kept in the family over the years. Now I'll pass it around so each of you can have a look at it. And there's a whole bunch of a language written on it. That language now is a language they call Togia. And everyone said that the Native Americans did not have a written language, but that is a fallacy. Now, before Benjamin Black Elk died, and he was the one who really got me started on this, and he died in '73, and I made a promise to him that I would not let some of this die. And so he's handed that. Now I'm going to send the book around of this special language. Now on the stock of that gun, there's both buttons. Now this here in Togia means police.
Police?
Yeah, And he was one of the boys, one of his nephews, Sitting Bull's nephew, one bull was a policeman. And if he would have had his gun the day that Sitting Bull was killed, it may have been a different situation. But he had left his gun and was on his way back, and he'd went on an errand. But he never got back in time, and he found his uncle done. Now this is his uncle's band mark. This is the special band mark of Sitting Bull. And I'm going to explain some of the buttons of what they mean in this language of Togia. Togia now, in my search of what Ben told me, it is a religion too. And so there is so much tied to this that it's very important. Now you're going to be the people that will be the leaders, because you're spending your time preparing. And so this is something that Ben didn't want to get lost, was this language. And on every weapon that is of this time, this is another shotgun. Now on this shotgun is a man's name. And it's even the man who repaired this, his name is on the repair. It's written in this language called Togia. Now, if you go to the Lakota dictionary and look up this word, you'll find it. It means an ancient language, and it's spelled T-O-G-I-A. If you look in the Lakota dictionary, you will find it. That's what my presentation will be today, because the whole thing is intertwined. And now you take this one and it goes back around again. See, now on here, there's marks all over it. Now sometimes they're hard to see because time has pulled them. But I have done this all of my life of pulling them off. And this was repaired at the shop at, not Fort Robinson, but the one to that side. Better remember it. Is what?
Fort Laramie?
Yeah. The other agency beside Robinson to the east.
Fort Pierre.
No, I can't think of the name of that place. Anyway, there was a blacksmith shop there, and this gentleman that repaired that shotgun worked at that blacksmith shop. And he was at the Battle of Little Bighorn, but after that he came home. Now this one here is the special one. This one here is one of the guns that Crazy Horse turned in at Fort Robinson. And so when you guys go down there, and and then he has his mark. He had a special mark, and his mark is right here. So, and now his mark was always constant, and I have searched hundreds and hundreds of weapons and taken their stories off, and that's what a lot of this is in my book. And then I have some more books coming out that explains the language a little bit more. But the beauty of it is that each man wrote down his most important coup. In other words, what was the most important thing to him to remember? And so he physically wrote it on the stocks of the guns and on their weapons and so on. Now, the language is a simple language, but it's by the word. So in other words, when you see a symbol, it represents a word. Now there is no is's and was's and verbs, and they simply would go directly to the word. Now I'm going to let you look through, and you can start here. I got a lot of stuff that I'm going to get out of the way. Now this here is, I brought along, is a bone scraper that was used to clean hides. Now, on the bone scraper is a dot and then lines. The dot means a day. In the language of Togia, a dot means a day. And then every line represents a buffalo that was killed. And then we go to the next day, how many more buffalo were killed and how many times the scraper was used. So now this is the language. Now we'll go through a different period. As you look at it, you guys, you'll go through periods. Now this is a later period. And then when we go to it progresses through until this is the time now of what we call the glory time. In other words, when the tree really blossomed. And so these are the words. This is the numbering system. Now with that numbering system, it is almost as good a numbering system as we have today. And maybe sometimes even better. But see, because you can take these combinations, see here now is 100. And you take a combination of these and they fold together and you can write anything with it. It's just like Roman numerals, and but you would, it was something. Now, the important thing is of the whole thing is that what Ben wanted me to bring back and present it so that it will live again. You know, because every time I speak at the white colleges and I say the Native Americans have a language that is superior to what, because we always go back to the Egyptians, how good a language they had. Our language, you know, now sometimes when I say we, it means that I have spent 50 years doing this and I have become one of you. So sometimes when I say we, it means you. But I want, and so these are all the symbols. Now, here is a medicine wheel and all of its meanings. So very few understand the medicine wheel. See, in each one of these weapons that are marked with a Togia mark, or with band marks, they are also used as prayer buttons. And as you go to battle, see, before what you would do is you would have a sack, and in that sack you would have stones. So that when you would set the stones around yourself to create the medicine wheel, and you would then say your prayers and you'd step on a stone and you would turn and step on a stone and say another prayer. I have a lot of those prayers that they're of the great warriors. And but then they updated this. Rather than carry the stones, they simply put it on the stock of their guns. So what they would do is press a thumb on a button and say a prayer and go through. So these buttons have dual meanings. One, partially they are for when you hold it up, you know, as a warrior, who do you belong to? You belong to Sitting Bull. You belong to Sitting Bull's band. And so that's how they could tell each other in battle. But also before battle, you would run through your prayers, touching your buttons. And each one of the buttons you would have a special prayer for. So all of this now is tied together. Now this is the book that I have written on that specific gun. And you can look through there now. You can jump the pages quickly and see all of this I explain and what all of these mean. Now every one of these marks are in that book. And so you can go to that book and find that mark and it'll show its meaning. And so the stories that are to be discovered. Now I've spent a long time doing this, but I have 4 volumes coming out that will be only stories that are written on the weapons. But you can't believe that these stories have come through history, and when I find them written on the weapon, they're identical to what has been passed down. So it's really something. Now this is the buttons that I'm talking about, and then all the band marks that they belong to, and then what. See, then when you go into the buttons, then there's the way the bands are set up. You have bands, you have societies, and then you have extended societies. And in so doing, it gets very, very sophisticated then of what families you belong to and so on. You can almost trace yourself, like your teacher said, with a winter count. It's almost, pardon?
All that's written on the gun?
Yep, all of that's written there. Yeah.
By those marks?
Yeah, all the marks. And see, then there's his mark. Now, this man here, some of you may have known him. But he's a Miniconju, and he was an old friend. And we've lost him here about 3 months ago. And but he was a great man. But anyway, he was a great grandson of Sitting Bull. So, yeah. Now, anytime I'm going, and you guys have a question, just let's talk. Because if something strikes a historical note that you've heard from your families, bring it up, because I like to talk about it. When I was at Kyle, a young man brought 2 stories of his family, and it came from 2 branches. And so he told the first story, and I said, no, that's not quite right. So he told the second story that came from a different branch, and that one was perfect. And I said, that's the one you want to keep. I mean, that's the one that's correct. He said, well, I'll throw the other one away. I said, oh, no. There are some good parts in it. You keep that one too. So, but see, each one of those symbols, now this is the early time, or the later time. And see, this is different. Now, as you go through the history, and this is still 1900 forward. Now turn the page. Now you're going to go back. This is still 1900 forward. Now you're in the center. In other words, the Battle of Little Bighorn, this is the symbols that they use. Now as you go through. Now this is the numbering system. And you will find that written on a lot of the pieces. And so now I'm going to publish this, you guys. And so as soon as I get it done, I've given you each a card. You didn't get a card. I can give you a card. If you could run across any stories or have any questions, even now I've written a great deal on this battle here, Kildare and Whetstone, Sand Creek. So if you want any help along the way, when you're coming to those battles, I can give you the guns they used. I can give you the serial numbers that was used. And not that maybe it's that great, but it is great because of the fact that those tell the history of, and you know, so much of it is, to me, is being proud. You know, there was never a cavalry like the Ogalalas and like Crazy Horse. I mean, the Army has bought my book, and they have questioned me on what I know of him and how he conducted himself at battles. And they teach his tactics. So it is something to be proud of. Now that's the medicine wheel, and it's all of its meanings. So, and now the language, Ben said, the language long ago was only handled by medicine men. But as we come forward in history, even, you know, we downgrade the women in this time. But now I'm going to show you something that that this is a wedding axe. And on this wedding axe, a woman has written in Togia. And she has her name on her there, her husband's name, her children's names, her mother-in-law, and everything. I'm going to go...
Written in what?
It's a what?
Written in what?
This is a wedding axe.
Yeah.
And she wrote on here all of this, and she wrote it herself. You know, rather than what we would say that... Now, you may know what I'm talking about here, but I'm going to explain something about the wedding axe. It is a very important thing to the Native Americans of this time. And what you would do is if you were asked, then you would send your brother and start negotiating. So in other words, if you, for example, wanted to meet a woman, that you would send your brother and say, I want to open negotiations. And then she in turn would send her brother, if she accepted that, in other words, then she would send her brother and they would start negotiating. But going back to the wedding axe, the brother then, this would be, he would only buy the head and from a trader. And then that would be his gift to his sister. Now, when you put the handle in it, this is the way you put the handle in. You set the handle here, and then you run your fingers out. See, so this woman was a large woman, and you can tell almost by her height, by the length of her handle. And but then, now I'm going to pass this around, and I have marked on here what you find. See, that was her name. And then if you turn it over, then you will find that this is her husband's name and this is her mother-in-law's name. So it's quite, you know, we searched for, I have searched guns for over 40 years and always reading the language until we discovered a wedding axe. And then she has written on there. And so all the time we were thinking that the women, only the medicine men had the language, but she wrote it just as well as the men. So it was something to have it passed on that way. Now like this starts about 1900. And as you work your way back, then these are how the symbols changed. Now, when you get to here, this was the heyday, and this was and this was what most of it's written about. See, and this is the Lakota numbers, and how they wrote them. See, and then the language was used a great deal, especially now. Go to the back page. This here is oh, no, I got the wrong book. When the scouts went out, they always, you know, and it goes back to how well organized they were. They were so meticulous in everything that they did, and everyone says, well, it's helter-skelter. Not if you know this symbol. We always attribute to Hitler, but it was this symbol came from us. the Lakota. Now, this means scout to the Lakota. And the way it was is that 4 men would group here. This man would ride to a certain distance. Then he would turn and ride this way. He would set a lance. And then he would say what he saw within his parameters. If he saw buffalo, then he would write at the base of this with stones. That means buffalo. Now, how many buffalo? So then by knowing the language, you will connect these dots. And they were stones that they physically put down on beside the lance. Then what they would do is set 2 more stones. There's a lot of buffalo. They would set the stones here. That would mean a lot of buffalo. If there wasn't a lot of buffalo, then they would set the 2 stones here. And then what it's pointed to is where the buffalo are. And that's what, this is, and then he would turn and he would go this way. Now, when he gets here, then he turns and comes home. This man does the same thing. He goes out and out, he sets a lance. And then he marks this area that he was responsible for. And it is the most beautiful way of working. Now, not all were scouts. This was a great honor. And they were hand selected, not only because of, mostly because of their training. If you were lucky enough to have a father that could teach you, or an uncle or a grandfather that could teach you the ways, then you could become a scout. But see, they covered this whole area, and then they would rotate back, and then they would come out and set another one. And they would never miss any game that way, or enemy. And it was quite a system. Now, if you got to here and set your lance, and you saw soldiers, so then you would write this. You'd lay a stick and break a stick, and you would write that and lay it at the foot of that lance. That, when the next man got to your lance, he would read what you saw behind you, and he would know what needs to be done. And that's where the language is so important for this time. Now, Ben said the language went back to almost, thought it went back to probably 1400. Now, it probably goes back further than that. The medicine wheel, we don't know how far back it goes. But the medicine wheel now is important. To now, when you would be at a lodge and you wanted someone to write for you and you didn't know the language, it was carried in a square. It was a square piece of leather. It had a whole hole in each corner. And then could run a rope through that. But then it was folded up, and when you folded it up, there was sand in the bottom of that. And a medicine man would carry that with him. So then when he would come back to his lodge and you would come and say, help me with some of the words, he would fold this out and he spreads the sand out, and then he takes and he puts the mark in the sand. And then when you have gotten that mark on your gun, then he clears the table and puts another mark. Then you put that mark on your gun. Now some of the people, just like this little hatchet that I'm sending around, she ended up knowing the language. So she more than likely is belonged to a medicine man, or has a close, maybe her dad was a great medicine man, and she has spent her time watching this process. Now, when he was done telling, then he would just pull the string, and that folds right up, and the sand stays inside. And It's something that no one could come up with but Ben. Ben now passed this on to me. His dad was Nicholas Black Elk. We've finally got the mountain changed to his name, who it belongs to be. Now, I'm not quite old enough to have known Nicholas. But Ben and I have been up on top of that mountain that now bears his dad's name. And we spent many hours talking about, now Ben was an older man at this time. Of course, I was very, very young. And so he was always teasing me, if we get up there, you may have to carry me down. But I said, that's not a problem. But anyway, he told, there's so much that he has given me that I want to make sure that I pass on. Now there's all the medicines that his dad, Nicholas, got, they're almost all of his ingredients comes from the Black Hills. And most all of the things that he used in his remedies are found along creeks. Now, we have walked that, and I even know how to mix it. I have his dad's mixing grinder, and it's, but all of that now I'm going to publish so that everyone can, so it isn't lost. I think that's my whole goal. Since I retired, I promised Ben that I would write down, or of course I had it all written down. Now I've been going through old notes that are years and years old. Some of them I can't even make work. So, but yeah, this here is the hatchet. It's a wedding hatchet. And then I was telling about the woman. She put her name on her husband's name, her mother-in-law, and so. But now this here, my last exhibit is the work of another woman. So now that's the medicine wheel, and if you guys, what I should do is leave a copy of that for you, because there's so much in this, because it tells all of the things. See, now the directions are so important to understanding the old religion, because everything is in sixes. There are 6 directions: east, west, north, and south, up and down. Those are the 6 directions. And each one of them are important because each one of them represents certain things. Like the west represents the thunder being. Now, when you're 13 years old, you go through a process of a vision. And in your vision, then you determine your way of life and what road you're going to follow. Is it going to be the black road, or is it going to be the red road? And then which direction? All of these things are important to you because they will build your way of life. It means that you're going to. It just means that you're going to follow those ways, and so isn't that something? For so many years, we always thought that only the men had it, but we were so excited when we found this. I'll tell you.
Can you imagine?
What's that?
Can you imagine stretching out a buffalo and taking the hide off, and then using an axe to break that breakbone?
Yeah. A woman, to her, this is the most important thing of that time. It cuts her wood in the morning. It cuts her wood at night. Just everything is there, and I'll tell you a story about Black Shaw woman. I'm going to write a book on Crazy Horse's wife, and it's going to be on his wife. Ben's wife, Ellen Black Elk, was a cousin to Blackshaw. And so they lived close together and they did a lot of things together. And so, so much of it, she lost her wedding axe when they were at Wolf Mountain. And it was cold and the river was froze over, and she went and was chopping a hole to get water. Now she had dog ear with her. And of course, you know, in the dead of winter when it's probably 10 below, and you know, and the water splashing on your axe, it gets so slippery you can't hang on to it. And she finally broke through and the axe went in the river. And so she just sat there in the snow and cried, because it means so much to you and it's something that you need. So Dog Ears, he went back to camp, and of course Crazy Horse always had an axe that he used, but no one could touch it. But Dog Ear grabbed his axe and came back with it, and she said, "Oh, we can't lose that." And he said, no, he cut a big hole and he went down in the water now and got her axe back.
That was
You know.
that was a Potter River, huh?
Huh?
That was a Potter River or a Tongue River?
It was the one by Wolf Mountain.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah, I think you're right, Tongue.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, but I told your students now, I have a book coming out about all these battles that you wrote down. And if I can help, but the big thing I could help with is that I can give you the weapons that they used. And I can even give you serial numbers of some of the weapons. It's just a little fluff that ends to the history. So feel free to call me. Be sure and tell me that you're a student, and I'd be glad to help. So, because you didn't get a card. I'll give you a card.
Any questions, you guys?
Yeah. Now, anytime you guys just break in, because don't let me go roaring on by, because when a thought jumps in or a question jumps in, just interrupt me, because that doesn't bother me a bit. So if you got anything that you'd like to ask of my rambling, just go ahead and so go ahead.
What did you say that symbol was for again? The like Nazi star.
Which one now?
Just like the hole when you drew it up.
Oh, this one, yeah. See, now that was we use this all the time, this symbol. Now I put it this way, but most of the time it's reversed. It goes like this. This is what more the Ogallala is used. This would be more familiar to you than this one. This one I put up because I wanted to make the difference, show the difference of what a meaning can be. And of course Hitler, he made this so popular, but this was the one that was used more by the Lakota. And of course it means scout, or this means scout too. But when they went through this process for scouting, it was, I've told the Army about this scheme that they had. And they have since worked on some things that they teach at some of the military schools. So.
Could I throw some stuff into that?
What's that?
Could I throw some stuff in there?
You betcha.
Yeah. Okay.
You betcha.
I think what you guys can probably start seeing about this is a lot of these warrior societies. Who did we say they were? Tokala, Skayaha. Okay. And blah, 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 blah. I have all of those. But here's, the main point is, within that lodge, this is the inside of this is the camp. This little symbol here, inside the camp.
Yep.
So deep inside, everybody was given certain duties to do. So this young man had to go, let's say, 2 miles or 3 miles up, 1 or 2 miles, and then during that time, if he saw something, not just at that one point there, if he saw something here too, sometimes he'd leave those marks. You know, so there's a finer point of view, so to say.
Yeah.
And it's really, now that's just one of them. Now, there's 4 guys that's out there. Sometimes it's be more than 4 guys. It would be 6 to 8, depends on how big this camp is. Imagine Pine Ridge Village right now. Imagine Pine Ridge Village. 4 guys won't be able to police that area.
Exactly.
So one of the things that we need to understand, remember I made mention that sometimes they get all excited, they run into certain things up there, and if they know it's going to happen right away, they would be running back into camp. Remember those designs that they were doing? Let's say he saw, what was the symbol again?
That one, soldiers.
Soldiers, he saw some soldiers. So that's danger, right? So he will be coming, Derek, you remember this?
Straight line.
What's that?
Straight line.
Yeah, they'll be coming back straight. But if there's good news, they're gonna be coming back
Zigzag.
zigzag.
Yeah.
Because this is good news is food.
Yeah.
One straight line is danger.
Yeah. And you could tell what he was doing way off and knew what he was going to say before he got there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, you know, it's good to understand a lot of this language there.
Yeah.
You know, these signs that you see up there. Sometimes you're going to run into, and anytime now you go into somebody's, you know, if you like where I live, man, it's out in the country, and sometimes we go into the next person's land, and it's really some beautiful country. But what happens nowadays is, man, people practically run you off their land. You know, you don't look at some of those things anymore. So these signs, there's no more of those anymore. So it's very important parts of our history that we need to utilize. And then I think you have copies of that someplace, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be important
Yeah.
to tie into a lot of the history. So sometimes it dictates, or what do you call it, warrior humbale. From a dream, for each warrior society, there was a different type of medicine man. So one of them might have a dream about something. Okay, so it's not just one medicine man, or you call him warrior humbale, or Wakawechasha, a spiritual man, and he's got different powers. So through the and every one of those warrior societies had one person there. If they were going to go to war or go do his duty here was as a scout. They call it a tuwe. A scout in Lakota means tuwe ya. Tuwea. That's a scout. So his job was to be out there on foot. And there's certain things that he had to carry. He had to carry his own food. His bag of wasna. You know, his weapons, his knife. Some of them probably, those days we wouldn't carry, they wouldn't be able to carry this big old this
Shot
glass.
That's right.
So every one of those warrior societies, there was like the Tokala or the Skyha or the Braveheart, every one of them had some sort of spiritual leader there. Before they left, they would get them ready. How would they do that?
Paint them or
Yeah, they would smudge them. They would smudge them and put their marks on them. So whatever dream that they had, that they will do a good job, and you're gonna.
What kind of markings does yours have?
Oh
Or
man.
do they do it all with?
Oh no. It comes from like one mark that they would use is on their forehead when you make hookah. Okay, your feathers. Your wapkeganaka. You guys, I showed you the wapkeganaka, right?
Did you bring it?
Huh?
Did you bring
you
it?
didn't have it last week. You said you were gonna bring it this week.
Yeah.
And you're gonna sing that song or something?
Oh yeah, there's a song attached to that too. But the wapkeganaka is
How come
you
it's so
tie it on the
big?
back of the hair, right here.
How come it's so big?
It doesn't have to be that big. It's between 4 to 8 inches.
And then they just wear it on the bottom?
Yeah, they tie it right, just like what I have my hair today.
Mhm.
That's how they would tie it on. One is your society feather, and one is your naming feather. Maybe other kind of war honors. You carry those. So it's plus the different types of colors that they have. So when they went out, it was almost like when they had their spiritual guidance there, when they went to them, and they always were told that what the duties that they're going to be doing is that they may not ever come home. That's how deadly that work that job was. So it's really sometimes it's good to be ready, and be conscious of the spirituality that Lakutas lived with at that time. So every one of these warrior societies, they met a lot. There was, all of this stuff now is starting to it feels better to understand a lot of this stuff, especially with this, when the rifles coming in, and before that it was the bow, arrow, and the lance. One thing that you guys could probably start looking at in those books is look for a little bighorn battle, and see somebody that's in a fight, a little bighorn battle. Look at his quivers. He has 2 quivers on his back. One is for arrows, and one is for bows. Because sometimes those bows are going to break. In the heat of battle, sometimes, you get into it and you break the bow. So you got to get out of the way and get another one, and meanwhile make sure nobody gets you, and so you have to restring it and then start all over again. So it was a big job that they had to do. So anyway,
How much does that gun there weigh?
What's that now?
Your gun, how much does it weigh? That one?
This one here, did you get a chance to see it?
She wants to know how much it weighs.
Yeah.
How much it weighs?
Yeah.
About 10 pounds.
And then how does
It's heavy.
it-
Now, did the knife get around? Okay, good.
You never really explained what it was.
Yeah, I haven't. Now I'm going to right now. Here, I'll put this back. So we'll let it lay right here. So now this knife here was made in by a woman whose husband was with Wild Bill Cody when they went to England. Now, in the language of Lakota, or Togia, this here means spotted. And if you look in my book, you can find that.
Can you put that in front of
Oh,
the
yeah.
camera too?
Yeah, here, I'll turn this around so you can see. Now, this is just a regular a knife that he purchased in England. And then on this mark here now is the mark that states that he's a medicine man. And then this is the mark for weasel. So his name is Spotted Weasel. And so we can trace these people. And then, see, she didn't write any more than that. But on the guns now, they write more. They tell the story of what happened and who they rode with, who is their brother friend, and so on. So all of this history we want to try and retrieve. And so, like Marcel, you had some people that you know that have weapons. We'd love to get their stories. And then too, my recommendation would be, if you owned one, would be to keep it. But if your family has decided that they're going to sell it, then what I would like to do is let me appraise it for you. So in other words, someone will not steal it from you. I know what the market value is and you can't believe the market value. That rifle laying over there is worth $60,000. That gives you some idea of some of the weapons. The knife is worth $12,000. See, now you have treasures that are there, you can't put a number on it. What I'm saying is, to a family, and especially if we can get all the history that we can off of it, and so that the family can retain that history. But if you feel that you want to part with it, then I will help you get the proper value out of it. So it's something to think about. And you have friends that you can visit with. You have my card. I'm running out of time quickly, and I wish I had another 3 hours, but I have to scoot. And
A couple of questions. What he was talking about is whenever Buffalo Bill Wild West came in, when Buffalo Bill, we're gonna get into that part of the historical era, Buffalo Bill, and one of the things that you're going to run into is there was a lot of poverty here on this reservation during, even worse then than today. But what he's saying is a lot of these items, and this is where a lot of collectors picked up they bought up a lot of this information and items, the guns, the knives, the tomahawks, and all of that, and they bought it back from Buffalo Bill Wild West. So a lot of this information is probably some of those guns. You get a chance to go to Buffalo Bill Wild West show, or the Buffalo Bill Wild West Museum in Cody.
yeah,
And so there is a lot of those items up there too. So a lot of those items of interest, the Lakotas they were so poor that when they came home after 1 or 2 weeks, they had to pay for food for their people. They ended up selling all their stuff. So a lot of that stuff is worth thousands and thousands of dollars. Yeah.
yeah.
So
if you have friends that you know that have, tell them to be proud. What I would like to, and I won't tell anyone of where they are if we want to keep them a secret, but I would love to get the history off of each one of them. And then I will record the history just like I have in this book. And so that you would have, or a friend or whatever, would have the history of that weapon that is written physically on the gun. See, and that's where my history comes from, what is written on the gun. and then it concurs with history that's been passed down. So we can, it would be something that we need to save, you know. Because what Ben wanted me to do was to reintroduce our past. You know, it's just like your professor is doing here. This is important, you know, because first of all, you know, I'm a Norwegian, and you know Norwegian history. We were the bandits of the sea. Now, I come directly from south of Oslo, but we've never kept the stories. You know, that is one thing that is so wonderful about your past, is that those gentlemen that lived these times has written it down on those weapons, and so much of it was lost. I don't know how many of you are Catholics, but the black robes destroyed so much of our stuff. It was a bad time. They wanted, you know, and I've studied both religions of that time and of now. In other words, what I'm saying is Nicholas's religion, of what he believed. Now, he accepted Catholicism, but when he told Ben when he died, I still die in the old religion. But when you understand the old Lakota religion and you compare it to our religion, I'm a Lutheran, and I cannot find the difference. There's one God, there's one heaven, you know, there's one hell, and it's the same thing the Lakotas believed. So this is what you want to be proud of, you know. Now, I would love if you would invite me back, and I would come back again. Maybe next time you'll have some questions that you can throw in, you know, and expand it just like your professor did. He did, you know, exactly right, you know. And these are the beautiful things that we don't want to lose. And so, go ahead.
Do you have any like other?
You what?
Do you have any like other weapons?
Another what?
Do you have other weapons?
Maybe like.
Oh,
like,
yes. Yes, I'll bring different set next time.
To like maybe overseas.
Yeah, I see. I have now. When you borrow your professor's book, you go through here. Just about all these guns in here I own, and I can bring them. But now we'll go to this one. This one here now is a special one, and it belonged to Benjamin Black Elk, and it belonged to his dad, and it was given to him on his 13th birthday by his aunt, because she said, now you're a man, you need a weapon. And so this is his life mark, the falling star and the morning star. Those are the things that he followed all of his life. And that's like my crazy horse, he believed in the thunder being of the west. Now, this is Ben's life mark here. And every day when he would go to work at Mount Rushmore, he would paint the dots on his face. And that's those dots right there. And they're little brass tacks. Yeah,
So
I own this revolver. Next time I come, I'll bring it.
Show that to everybody so they can.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Pass this down.
after
See,
we're done-
now to understand, see, this is his dad's mark. That dime that's on there, when he was at the Battle of Little Bighorn, a little boy came up to him, and it was a great honor if you could come home with a scalp. And so the little boy asked the older little boy, would you scalp a soldier for me? And so he did. And while he was scalping the soldier, the little boy went through the soldier's pockets and he found some coins. So he gave Nicholas a dime that he found in the pocket for scalping the soldier. And so he put that on the grip. So, the first time I saw that gun, I was moving, I owned a big construction company, and I was moving my bridge outfit from up at Sturgis down to Hot Springs. And I pulled up on Highway 79, and here is a Native American dressed in full regalia, war bonnet, clothes, just it looked beautiful. So I pulled over and stopped, and he walked over to my pickup and he said, "Why would a white man stop for me?" And I said, "Because I employ a lot of your relatives." And I did. A lot of the people, all my life, I've employed 50 to 150 a year of Native Americans. Well, anyway, Ben said, I said, "What's your trouble?" He said, "I got a flat tire." I said, "Well, let's get your spare out and I'll help you fix it." I ain't got a spare. Well, I said, "Let's get your jack out and we'll get the tire off and we'll take it to town." I ain't got a jack either. So I said, "That's not a problem. I got a construction pickup." So I took it off. So we were leaving, just gonna leave his car. So I said, "Is there anything in there of value? You better lock it." "No," he says, "my car won't lock." So I said, "Well, is there anything in there of value?" He said, "Yeah, I got my dad's old gun." I said, "You better get it because it probably won't be here when we get back." So that was the first time I saw that specific gun.
You wanna take that picture of that gun and then put it in front of the camera and explain to
Yeah,
it
okay, I'll do that.
to the
Yeah, has everyone got a chance to see the book? Now the book is going to stay so that each of you can read it. And so,
I was just gonna say, I wish we could get copies of it.
yeah, well, if you guys want a personal copy, you holler at me.
Okay.
So, but anyway, going back to this, now, this here is, can you focus here? Are you okay? Okay. Now this here is Nicholas Black Elk's gun, and it was given to him, which you probably have, by his aunt. But anyway, this is his life mark, the falling star and the morning star. This is the dime that was given to him at the Battle of Little Bighorn. And then the button marks on the bottom of the grip are Benjamin's. When he inherited the revolver, then he put his life mark on it. And that's a really a special story too that I'll tell next time I'm here. So,
You know, whenever they used to give symbols and how to contact each other,
what's that?
a long time ago, whenever they wanted to contact each other, did they use mirrors too?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Because I remember seeing my
The mirror,
grandpa do
there
that.
was, as Marcel, your professor said, there were societies and bands, and there was what they called the Mirror Society. Now those people were special. They almost part of their religion was the mirror, but it was used extensively, and it was one of the great trade items of that time. And Black Shawl Woman, I thought I had her mirror ran down one time, but it wasn't hers. So, but, and next time I'll bring along Nicholas's grinding stone, how he makes medicines. And then I'll bring along some of the special medicines that he did. He was a very good shaman, and he could cure people that, there was one woman that Ben said that the doctors, there was McGillicuddy who was a good doctor, and he gave her until morning to live. Nicholas spent the night with her. Ben says Dad never talked about what he did. That woman lived for 7 years, and so he was a special. One of the black robes one time he was in with a woman that was ailing, and so he was using his rattle, and he was shaking his rattle, and the priest came in and grabbed him and threw him out the log house. This is the time now when we went from lodges of canvas to wooden homes, and all the logs was hauled from the hills, and they built log cabins. But anyway, Nicholas stood outside. Now Nicholas is not a large man, but the priest came out, and he just lifted the priest right off the ground and said, you'll get away with it this time, but don't ever do it to me again. And he threw him on the ground. So, but Ben got a big kick out of it, telling that story. But anyway.
That picture of that scraper, is
Yeah.
that made out of bone?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, that's made out of bone. Now, is that book back in the book? I'd like to show that to the professor. This one here. Now, they have one of these up at the Crazy Horse. See, and what this is in Togia is a dot means day. And then every line means a buffalo killed that day.
Oh.
And it probably means that she scraped that many. Then this is the next buffalo hunt. And then so many. And that's, they have one just like this up at the, and when I was laying in there and I was explaining to the curator there, and they said, does it really mean that? I said, it does.
Yeah.
So,
I seen my mom tan a deer hide, and I don't know what she used.
yeah, yeah,
I'm just curious.
that was quite a process. So, yeah. Well, I suppose, oh no, I'm looking at my clock. Hey, I got some time left. My clock's even an hour behind, and I thought, holy cow, it's 3 o'clock. Now, the language now, what we want to do is, I'm gonna do a scratchbook, and later on I'm gonna publish it. But what I'll do is I'll get a scratch copy, and I'll get a copy to you. So then you can go through there, and then I was going to bring along 2 of my future books, and I walked off and forgot them. But it would be wonderful so that you could go through them, and then what's written on the gun is told in the story. And then if you go and check history against it, then it's the same, you know. So it has to be right, you know. And so many times everything got mixed up, and you've probably heard the story before, because the problem with the situation was that the whites would come with an interpreter. Now this interpreter may be a Lakota, but is he speaking Lakota? Is he speaking Nakota? Or is he speaking Dakota? And so every once in a while, you know, the words just swing a little bit. Well then, if you are listening to a Lakota and you're writing it down or telling an author, well, it's just like Cheyenne now is slightly different. But now we'll take Two Moons. For so many years, a lot of people said Two Moons couldn't have been at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Why? Because he keeps calling the white horses, or the gray horses, white. Well, you have to know Two Moons. He has 3 wives. He has an Arapaho wife, he has a Cheyenne wife, and he has a Lakota wife. And so consequently, he would sometimes, you know, and he was fluent in all 3 languages. And so, but sometimes he was more comfortable to say a word that may be in Cheyenne, and they interpret it as being in Lakota. He's talking in Lakota. And so the interpreter then would say, well, he's still talking in Lakota. So the words in Cheyenne and Lakota are so close between gray and white that you can interturn them. You know, you can almost, if you're not listening real careful, you could, and so all the time that he was saying gray horses, which was Custer's way of determining what companies. Every company had a different colored horse. See, and so long I have traced where everyone was on the battlefield by the Native American testimony, because that's the only testimony we got that's accurate. And so when they talk about a horse, and so then I go back to what horses or what part of the companies were there. So I have fit together almost a great deal of the field. Now in the book where, oh, you had the book. On the back of the book is a map of the field. And it has all of it has where all the lodges were at, how many people were there, and how many lodges and so on. Then when I tell a story of the Native Americans, I carry you through the battlefield with a map. So you can follow it really close and enjoy it. And I spent the road in front of there I bid on in 1974. And they allowed me, in those days you could go on the field. And I spent a lot of time with, I had a lot of Cheyenne with me. And we walked the field and they would say, well, my great-grandfather, he said he was here, you know, and so on. And so all of that I wrote down. So when I told the stories, then the routes that they took, because sometimes you can talk about a certain place on the field and it doesn't mean anything unless you're an expert of that piece of topography. But this way you can follow it and really enjoy it. So, but anyway, going back now to Black Shawl Woman, that book comes out. It's really going to be something. Now I'm going to write it and not change anything. I'm going to write it in the way she would want it written. In other words, the way she told it. And because she told one time that her and Ellen were together and they were making soup and she was cutting carrots and she cut her finger and the blood was running, and so she started reminiscing about the time then when Crazy Horse was killed, because it brought back a memory to her of when when he was killed. She wasn't present at the moment, but Red Feather, her brother, came and got her, so she came. When she got there, right away, Dr. McGillicuddy told her, I can't save him, but I can make him comfortable, that's all. So he was giving him morphine. And of course, then his dad came, and then they spent some time together. Some of the stuff that he said that no one really knows about, she told Ellen. And Ellen was good enough to give that to me, so that'll be in the book too. So it'll be quite a time, and it's really interesting. With the book, I'm going back to when they were born, and they were of the same clan, and so they were together most of their lives. But the main part of it is the 7 years that she spent with him. And then I carry her right up then to her grave. And, but
Where's she buried at?
Pardon?
Where's she buried at?
She's buried close by here, by Manderson. Yeah. Yeah. So the whole thing is, though, is that we have to start somewhere of spreading the word. Because so much has been written down, and once it's written down, then it becomes law. And most of it is inaccurate. And so this is the reason why I enjoy coming to the leaders of the times. You know, in the future, you people will be the leaders. And in so doing, we can correct this. And when we correct it, we're going to see how proud we should be. as a nation, and we were something. I always say that if we hadn't shot off all the whites, hadn't shot off the buffalo, we'd still be fighting the war. That's the only thing that defeated them. There was nothing else to defeat them. No one was beating them. They never beat them at war. They beat them because the Congress passed a bison law because they were becoming extinct. And so they put them on the endangered species list and was going to stop killing them. Grant wouldn't sign it. He wouldn't sign it for one reason. He said that's the only way I can bring them into order. And that was your ancestors. So, but you've got, this is what we want to do. We don't want to put it on a paper or advertise, but we, and here I am, we again, but you know what I'm saying when I say we need to be proud within ourselves and exactly what we have here. This is who we are, is these, and this is, sometimes the only time of any of these battles that we were in trouble was because we were so outnumbered. It was just unbelievable, and yet we could still whip them, and right away, but so what's my 2:30 now? Questions?
At 2:30, we usually take a break.
Oh, okay, good deal.
What we can do at 2:30 is we can turn them loose, and then we can probably end it here, so you can get.
Yeah, and then I can get going. Yeah, because that'll work perfect.
He's got to be
See,
up to
now,
Corey's class at
before we take a break and I leave, is there any questions?
It took
Now-
you how many years to research and get all this information?
Yeah, all this, I have done this for 40 some years.
Oh my gosh.
It's been kind of like a journey. And Ben was the one who put me on the road. And I'm an engineer. And so maybe that's what he saw in me was that if I made a promise, I would keep it. But his dad, Nicholas, thought he was the one who was going to bring back the tree. And then, but Ben said, Dad, before he died, said that he wasn't the one, there's someone else is going to come. All we got to do is start putting one leaf on at a time. And we can be proud again. So.
Any other questions? For now, you got a couple of things.
Now, I know what I've talked about sometimes takes time. So feel free with your card to email me, call me, or whatever. And if there's a little question, now I don't care if you think it's not important or you think it's foolish, don't. If I can answer it, I'll tell you, but more than likely I'll have an answer. And some of the things that's important, and maybe when you're talking to friends and telling them about what we talked about today, they have a question. Bring it up.
I want a copy of your book right away, whatever you have.
Okay.
So, can you take names now?
Okay.
Actually, we could get.
Huh?
You have books in the car.
I got books in the car.
Or whatever
Okay,
he's
hold on,
gonna
hold on.
write about,
Who else has got one? Who wants one?
I do.
Okay. I'll tell you what, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'll get 6.
Any last questions?
I'll be back.
You have his card, you have his book.
Thank you.
We want to thank you for coming to our class.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
And bringing us
Appreciate you guys
a book.
inviting
Wow.
me. So, this was wonderful.